Earlier this week, I saw Free Guy and figured the movie was at least good enough to warrant a quick little review from me, so I decided to put this together. Enjoy. The movie stars Ryan Reynolds, basically playing Emmett from the Lego movie, as a very chipper, everything is happy NPC named Guy. A digital video game character existing in this Grand Theft Auto style multiplayer world where the avatars controlled by users run wild and free. The user controlled avatars are easily identified by the fact that they are the only ones that wear sunglasses. We learn that Guy is just this simple character, friends with a bunch of other NPCs, specifically another one named Buddy, a security guard at the bank level that both of them work at, Guy being a bank teller and Buddy being the security guard. Anytime a character user decides to play the level of robbing the bank, it is the job of all the NPCs to simply go along with cowering and whatever the game tells them to do, and simply move on as if nothing bad ever happens. As one robbery is taking place, Guy notices a player character walking away and wants to learn of who she is. Unfortunately, he gets hit by a train and wakes up Bill Murray style in his home as if nothing ever happened via Groundhog's Day. Eventually, this leads to Guy deciding to go against his programming and ends up stealing the sunglasses off of one of the avatars while also killing them in the process. That's when we get into a very they live style situation where when Guy puts on the sunglasses, he sees the kind of floating objects that most players see, health boxes, ammo, stuff like that. And, well, he starts getting used to it. He eventually meets up with the girl he was looking for in the first place, Millie, and find out that she has a friend named Keys. We then discover that basically the side story of the entire movie is that Millie and Keys are these programmers who created this other game called Life Itself, and that the source code that they made was stolen by Big Bad to create his Free City program. So basically, we realize that the movie is basically Tron if the people that created Grand Theft Auto Online stole their source code from Ark Survival Evolved. Guy simply follows along with all of this to help Millie without really understanding most of what she's talking about. We find out that she gives him the advice to level up to 100 so he'll at least be useful, still thinking that, by the way, the entire time this is happening, they keep thinking that he's just some player character who hacked the game and is using a NPC bank teller skin. But over time, they finally realize that he's not a character, but an actual NPC. So this then leads to a scene where Guy is leveling up and getting the attention of all kinds of people, including online personalities, which I don't really care for. They don't really add that much to the scene. There are a few character personalities that happen throughout this movie, and okay, you remember that Liam Neeson joke commercial that was made for Clash of Clans back when Taken was still on everybody's minds? That's a little bit more relevant than any of the cameos that are in this movie because you could honestly just take them all out and it really wouldn't change a thing about the film. But basically, Guy is leveling up by, instead of actually killing players or NPCs or anything, he literally just goes around disarming them. And because he takes their weapons and stuff from them, he somehow levels up. As this is happening, the programmers, finally realizing that this either is the greatest NPC AI ever or some type of weird hacker, are trying to basically do everything they can to get rid of him. They at first try to get rid of him personally by having two programmers use their avatars to fight him inside a moving city earlier in the film, but eventually Keys, being one of them, is finally coming around to Millie's realization that this character might actually be evidence of what they were talking about. See, in their game Life Itself, it is this game where they create code and the code just exists for itself, constantly upgrading. This is supposed to be the explanation for why Guy is able to go from just the simple bank teller NPC to the player extraordinaire that he becomes by the end of the film. So as Guy continues to level up, he ends up helping Millie in a level where there is a stash house. It looks like something out of a James Bond villain movie type of thing. The first round ends up with a pretty good fight scene, but unfortunately it leads to Guy showing up in the last minute to help Millie escape empty-handed, only for Guy with his friend Buddy to both go to that same stash house and find out that it's owned by Channing Tatum, who's in this movie for some reason. And I will admit that was probably the one funny joke that I thought was a little bit funny in the movie, because it's the character avatar is Channing Tatum, but the actual person is just this pasty face, lives with his mom type of person, because, let's be honest, that's kind of how some of these games are. Anyway, but he ends up just talking with the guy. Channing Tatum's like, "Oh man, you're so cool, man. Like, can you punch me in the face or shoot me or kill me, man? You'd make me like so cool, man. My subscribers are watching, man." That kind of thing. So, he ends up getting the footage and then meets up with Millie at what basically is the multiplayer lounge. It looks like something out of for anyone that's ever played Call of Duty Black Ops 3, where there's that in-between level setup location where you can do all that stuff. So they go to this table where they can then view the footage, but the people that are onto them, Mr. Big Bad decides to do a system reboot for the entire multiplayer game, causing the avatars to basically get kicked out of the game, and Guy, from his perspective, to watch basically everyone else freeze around him before they then get erased by a white light. This causes Millie to go into a panic, thinking that all of the evidence that they had was right in front of them, only to be destroyed, when Keys is the one who informs her that even though Guy's code would be set back to, factory reset, that all you would need is the right, initiative, and it would cause all of his memory, code, experience, and everything to basically just resurface. She decides to go back into the game and kiss him. This causes his memory to come back, and he then brings her to his apartment house thing. That's when we get this. I actually thought this was kind of clever. There's a scene earlier in the movie. There's a reoccurring theme in the movie where there's a scene where Guy keeps opening and closing his blinds at his window over and over again, and we never know why until now. Well, it turns out that in the reflection of his blinds, he can see what is the life itself source code, the island that's in the game, and it's off the beach that's basically has an invisible wall that nobody can pass by. So they now just need to find a way to get there, and they would be able to prove what they say is true. So they come up with this idea where Keys is going to be the one who creates a bridge to get from the beach to the island, as Millie and Guy are basically now having to go against the game itself, because Big Bad decides to pull something so bad that it makes what Neil Druckmann did in 2020 look mild by comparison, and glitch the game. At first, Millie and Guy are having to drive across the city as the buildings start collapsing into each other, preventing them from driving along, as Keys creates a ramp so they can, get to the other side of the city. They make it, unfortunately losing their vehicle in the process, and they finally get to the beach where they're having to confront the fact that Big Bad decides to cause all players to basically be removed from the game. By the way, I forgot to mention that earlier there's a scene where Guy and Millie go to talk to all the NPCs and convince them that all they need to do is just not go along with the game's normal programming, so that they can be able to do what they're going to do and, free themselves from the original programming from Big Bad. So as that happens, the NPCs are all just off doing different things instead of the normal stuff. The players are just like, what the hell, kind of thing. So as that's happening, Guy and Millie get to the beach as Big Bad, again, causes all players to be booted out of the game, hence the Neil Druckmann joke. And Millie's avatar fades in front of Guy as he then is told, keep going. You're the one who can prove that all what we said was true. So he keeps going. And then that's when we meet Dude. Basically a roid rage Ryan Reynolds head on top of a Johnny Bravo-esque character who literally says catchphrase as his catchphrase. I couldn't roll my eyes any harder. The two battle for a little while, with Guy basically pulling out all kinds of random cameo weapons and stuff from different games, and everybody watching going, ooh, ah, as if it's so memorable. Anyway, the two fight, Dude basically given the power up to destroy in a single hit, and in a last-ditch effort, Guy decides to put the glasses on Dude. This causes him to have a similar event from earlier, where he's now, like Guy, looking at all the floating icons and starts getting distracted by it. Buddy shows up in the last minute to help his friend Guy, as the two then start crossing the bridge from the beach to the island, as Big Bad finally loses his mind and goes downstairs to start literally taking an axe to the server devices and all the machinery. As this happens, it causes the digital world of Free City to start literally being deleted as the NPCs run for their lives, and Buddy and Guy are trying to make their way across the bridge as it slowly gets deleted. Buddy eventually has a moment where he gets stuck and confesses that even though he's been afraid in the majority of his life, he's not afraid anymore, and convinces Guy to keep going because he's the one who can do this. So Guy then keeps going as the Big Bad is still hacking away in the basement, before Guy finally jumps through the last bit of invisible wall and shows the evidence that the island is on the other side. The whole world celebrates the big discovery, and Big Bad is basically ousted. As this happens, the NPCs have collectively gathered on one last remaining floating building, while Guy is basically over on the other side of the bridge on the island. Millie goes to meet with Big Bad as she convinces him that all she wants is her code from the original Life Itself game, the code for Guy and all the NPCs, and that in exchange he can keep all the property rights to Free City and all that kind of stuff. He thinks that this is a bad deal on her part, and thinks that he's the one who will benefit, so of course he agrees to it, only to find out later as the two, Keys and Millie, end up creating their Life Itself game, where it's basically Ark Survival Evolved if you wanted to watch NPC characters roam around in a Second Life style ant farm. And Free City, on the other hand, basically getting enormous scrutiny and losing all of its property and everything else because of everything Big Bad did in order to stop Free Guy. So then the movie turns into a moment where all the characters, including Dude, who's now, I guess, rehabilitated somehow, kind of, basically all meet back up on the Life Itself world where they're now free to do whatever they're wanting, and Guy ends up meeting back up with Millie, who tells her that even though he is this great character for her, he's only just a simple, love letter who was written by somebody else for her to enjoy. And that's when she realizes that Keys was the guy who was the one that was meant for her and all that good stuff, and she finally realizes it and goes and they have their first kiss. After that happens, Buddy, after being deleted or whatever happened to him, is reinserted into the Life Itself game, and he admits that he basically was Thanos and then brought back and doesn't really know what happened, and then they just decide to go and have their fun. And that was pretty much Free Guy. I would say overall the movie is okay for a popcorn flick if you just wanted something to enjoy and then, not really leave that much of an impact. It's an enjoyable film, don't get me wrong, but the cameos are pointless. The ooh and ah moments that are the same lie that they told us from Wreck-It Ralph Breaks the Internet, where, just make a few videos. Yeah, that's not how it works, honey. So anyway, plus a few of their little political jokes that they add for eye-rolling moments, in my opinion. But all that being said, I would say if you want to enjoy it, that's your choice. I enjoyed myself whenever it was in theaters, and I'd give it a 3 out of 5 for enjoyment. So go watch if you want. But until then, God bless, good journey, Christ loves you, and take care.